was wide open.
After the turnover.
He's got a man.
Harper going deep. Caught.
We have a big episode today as we're going to break down the big recruiting success that the Colorado gave Nebraska. It could not have worked out probably even better. And who flipped to Nebraska and who's next to flip to Nebraska. And what did we learn from that Colorado game? Let's break down that Colorado game. And if you don't mind while you're here, please click that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's really appreciated and it helps get the video out to other Nebraska fans and college football fans. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about, and I've had a lot of people ask me this, because I don't live in Nebraska. And I live down in Texas from Nebraska, but I've been away from there for years, even though I do go up to the game. I get season tickets. I make 2 or 3, 4 games a year. But down here, as bad as Nebraska has been the last few years, well, this year looks a little promising, as we all know. And I've been asked multiple times this year, is Nebraska that good? And I started thinking about that. Is Nebraska that good? Or was it more Colorado was that bad? And to me, probably a little of both. But to me, it's probably more Colorado's offensive line is that bad. Because I was at this game, good seats, and it was electrified. One of the most electrifying games I've been to. Loud. I got a little hoarse, probably why I didn't do a video right away. But hey, it was fun. But after going back through it and watching it again and watching it now on television, it's kind of sad how bad this offensive line is for Colorado. And they have some great talent on there. So to me, is it coaching? And it's kind of sad because you would think Deion would want to protect his son a lot better than he does. You'd think that'd be one of the first things he wants to do. If he's trying to get Shedeur to the NFL, get him some protection. Because Nebraska was bringing all night, was probably only bringing 3 or 4 guys and was in Shedeur's face within second or two. He had no time whatsoever, to the point he was so rattled that even when he did have time, he rushed his decisions. If you go back and look, you're going to see that Colorado had a lot of missed opportunities. When I went back and watched it, and you watched the aerial view, there was a lot of receivers that came wide open. So as great as the Huskers did, and as great as the secondary that we thought did, they had a lot of breakdowns. They had a lot of open receivers. I'm talking about wide open that either Shedeur missed or didn't see. And it wasn't just a couple. So if you get a chance, you find it on YouTube, go look at that view. Go look at the aerial view, the breakdown view, and you will see what I mean. So it's something they still got to clean up. It's kind of like what Rule said. Was the perfect game. Got a good win over a big rival, and they made a lot of mistakes to the point he has a lot of teachables. There was a lot in that secondary that can use improvement. But Shedeur, to me, probably had his worst game I've seen him have. And a lot of it had to do with the pressure, to the point he was so frustrated that you heard him make them remarks in his press conference and basically threw his offensive line under the bus. I got a feeling he probably regretted that afterwards. And then you saw Tommy Hill was in Travis Hunter's head the whole game. He had Travis Hunter complaining and griping and bitching. And you had to see it live, because I'm sure on the television, you didn't get to see them shots. To see Hunter over there to the sideline, which should have been a flag. The punting came out to punt to Nebraska, and Travis was still over there on the Husker sideline. hollering and yelling and intimidating the sideline to the point that he had to run off all the way across the field to get off. And to me, it didn't even, they didn't do anything. They didn't even look that way. And it's kind of sad because that was kind of one of the things I thought was bad in this game was the officiating. And I know everybody, I want to hear from everybody. There goes Huskers complaining about the referees and all that. You can go watch that game. I have no reason to complain. Nebraska won the game, but the officiating was bad. They would take a pancake block and throw a holding penalty, and even if it happened well away from the play, and it just shocked me. I'm watching it live right there, and when I'd see that flag coming, I'm going, dude, that's a pancake. Do you know what a pancake is? But then you would turn around and see Colorado because they couldn't stop Nebraska's rush. They would grab a hold of Nebraska's jerseys. You would see the jersey pull and go look at some of the tape. You even see it on the television tape. The jersey being pulled where they're holding them. And not once did they throw the flag on Colorado. And I understand it's a Big 12 officiating crew. Kind of wondered, man, was that the Big 12 saying, well, just don't make it look so bad? Because it seemed like the flags came out on Nebraska on any big play they had. And trust me, there was some that were legit. Don't get me wrong. There was some holdings that was legit. They didn't miss them for Nebraska, but it happened also on Colorado, and for some reason they weren't getting thrown. You don't rush like that and be in Shedeur space that much and not throw a holding flag throughout them games, because that means they're doing whatever they can to stop them. They're grabbing whatever they can to stop them. And you saw it. It was obvious from my seat, and I'm up there. I'm in club level, and I'm going, dude, if I could see this, you should be able to see it. You're 10 feet away, So it kind of ironic they would not call them, but they'd call Nebraska. Don't get me wrong. Nebraska had, a lot of them they called was holding. But like the old saying goes, you could find holding on any play. On any play, you could find holding. And they made sure they called every bit of Nebraska. And then some, because a couple of them were pancake blocks because they went down. They called it holding. So I'm hoping, Rule, I know they get to turn in some of these to the league. And I'm hoping Rule did that. But he's not allowed to say that or he'd get fined, I believe. But I think everybody would pay it. Let's get into what Nebraska did. And they did well in the first half. They ran the ball. They were physical, made some good plays, had some lucky plays. I even said that Nebraska's had such bad luck throughout the last few years. And yes, a lot of it was from their own doing, that if they got some of this luck turned around, look out, this team could go unbeaten if they start getting the breaks. Well, you saw one of them, that throw up the middle to Ramir should have been picked. I saw that live and I'm like, oh. And not only did they not pick it, that Ramir was able to tip it up and catch it and go in for a touchdown. And I even looked over to the one sitting by me and said, yeah, it's rather, like the old saying goes, I'd rather be lucky than good. So first half, everything probably went as planned, got physical, ran the ball well, threw it when you needed to. Second half, struggles. And I know a lot of people was asking me that, going, what happened to Nebraska's offense? And why did it struggle in the second half? And honestly, rhythm. I think one kind of got relaxed because of the lead. Probably didn't do too much. I really believe if Satterfield and Rule and them really had to score, really had to put the ball in the air, they could have done it. But they didn't really need to. And you could see Colorado going all out on the run up the middle. That's why the perimeter was open. And you saw a couple of big breaks. You saw Chikori's run around the corner. You saw Ramirez go, and yes, that's where the penalties came in. And you saw a lot of drives that would take off and get big plays, and then the flag would come out. It turned around mainly in the second half. Almost every other play was a flag, and that messed up the rhythm. And I think that did a lot of it in. And you got to think also Nebraska, and I know Rule and Satterfield all have talked about it, is the perimeter blocking has not been to what we would think it would be, especially when you got receivers like Banks and Nair and Bonner that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", 220 plus. They should be able to block them corners without a problem. And they've been struggling on that in the first two games. Now, let's give Colorado's secondary credit. They have NFL caliber corners. They've got a corner, Travis Hunter, who could go as receiver or corner. He's a top 10, probably top 10 offensive or defensive player, whichever way they want to go. So don't get me wrong. Colorado has some players, but if you want to compete with the big boys, you want to play championship football, you got to do a better job in that. And I know Rule and them said they were going to really get into that and practice. Rule's got a lot of things he could go at this week and practice and get on to the guys and try to keep their head out of the clouds so much, saying, yeah, you won the game, but there's a lot to clean up. But the biggest thing I thought that helped over the weekend, and it's probably going to help from now on, and if you go to the game, man, I tip my hat because we had fun. I'm telling you, that crowd noise at the stadium. I've told y'all this before. A night game in Nebraska is just different from the day games. Don't ask me why. Maybe maybe there's more rowdier people that come at night. Maybe it's after drinking all day. I don't know. Um, but we got loud. And every time that Colorado had the ball, we were making noise like you wouldn't believe. And that was our key. We were even discussing it before the game. They're going, we got to make sure, because of that communication, we got to make sure that the noise level. And remember, that was one of my 5 keys to the Husker win was the crowd, the noise from our crowd, and letting Colorado know whose stadium this was. And man, we didn't disappoint, to the point we had a lot of recruits that came back, just bragged and talked about the crowd noise, the atmosphere, that they haven't seen this anywhere else, and which is what made this big recruiting success this weekend. But the one thing, like I said, Nebraska had, and I even said this was a key, was one of the keys to win. But luckily it didn't cost them, because they was able to run the ball. And that was another one. They was able to put pressure, and I said that was the biggest, putting pressure on Shedeur and keeping him in the pocket. And for the most part, they kept him in the pocket. They put pressure on him and didn't allow him outside the pocket. But there was a couple times he did. But the biggest one was, remember I said no dumb mistakes, no turnovers, no penalties. All right, well, half of them we did a great job. No, we didn't have no turnovers. Penalties got to us. So we did have a lot of penalties. 12 penalties, I believe it was. There was a lot of flags total. I think even Colorado had nine or so themselves, and that's not even counting the ones they didn't throw or the ones that were declined. There was a couple declined. So there's a lot there for the Huskers cleanup. But for the most part, it was a good win. It was against Colorado. It was a kind of a great weekend because not only did we beat Colorado, Iowa State beat Iowa, and we were in the stadium already. There was a lot of us in the stadium already, and they showed that Iowa State kick live on that last second kick. And man, that stadium erupted like you would have thought Nebraska just scored a touchdown. So it meant a lot to them. So let's get into what I feel is going to be the perfect game for Nebraska. And that's Northern Iowa this weekend. This is probably the best scenario. You just saw what we had. We had 2 opponents that was able to spread you out, give your defense a workout, test that secondary, test your rushing, your pass rusher, remember we wanted to get 3 to 4 defensive linemen rushes this year, and we've done a great job with that. And question is, well, how good is UTEP and Colorado's offensive line? I kind of wondered if UTEP's offensive lines, if you had to ask me, is better than Colorado's. Colorado's got a lot of work to do. They got some talent on that offensive line. So to me, it's coaching. So Sanders might want to go find him a better coach because they got 5-star offensive linemen on there, and I understand they're young, but what we saw on Saturday was pathetic. But now we go into Northern Iowa, who now is going to line it up and play almost Big Ten football, physical, smack you in the mouth, try to come right at you with these big 220, 230 running backs, and they've got multiple ones. It ain't just one. So they could rotate in fresh 220, 230, 240. I think one of them's 240. Man, I don't know. Some of our linebackers ain't even that heavy, that big. So it's going to be mano a mano this weekend. It's going to say, bring it. See if you're tougher than me. So it's a good game to prepare Nebraska now. We're supposed to be really good at stopping the run. Well, we're about to find out. Now, I understand it is Northern Iowa, and I don't want to diss on anyone because we saw Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. We saw, who was it? Bowling Green give Wisconsin, I believe it was, all it could get. I think they won by 7. So let's not underestimate these teams because Northern Iowa is one of the better FCS teams there is. So let's take them serious. But it's going to be a good test. It's just going to be a test, if you know what I mean. Kind of like a scrimmage game to get you ready for the Big Ten. So how well, I think Nebraska right now is favored by about 31. And so what do I think? Will they cover that 31 points? Well, to me, being again at home, I think the defense will do well. Think they're going to open it up a little more for Dylan Raiola. Probably get the running game going themselves. You'll probably see more. You'll probably see Banks and Nair and them get a little more involved. And I feel like at the end of this, Nebraska's probably going to pull this game out. I wouldn't even be surprised if this isn't a shutout, if Nebraska does get a shutout. I'm predicting Nebraska 56-6, though. So they should cover that 31 points well enough. But I feel like Northern Iowa will probably score just because Rule's probably going to do what he did against UTEP and get a lot of players in, get a lot of the backups in on offense and defense. So even the 56, you might be wondering, will they get that? Because they would have probably got 50 plus even against UTEP if the first teamers would have stayed out there and played the whole game. They definitely could have probably got at least 42 against Colorado. They didn't make some of the mistakes and some of them penalties weren't called. But I'm still going to predict it 56-6. But wouldn't surprise me if they got a shutout. But I think because they're going to be playing a lot of players, probably every player, they're at home, so they're going to play everybody again, probably another 105 to 110 players that go out there and play. So now I want to get into the big recruiting success. This was such a success for Colorado that all these recruits decided, and every one of them was to the point that they couldn't believe what they were seeing. They said they have not been in an atmosphere that loud. And trust me, guys, it was that loud and it was that wild. And we just showed them as a fan base how great they are. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's been a long time since I've lived in Nebraska. And I go up early and I hang around in Lincoln and I live down here in Texas. And what I loved about going there, and it makes me to the point where, man, I probably want to move back. You know, like Adam character, he moved back, and I sitting there thinking maybe I should, because when you get there, everybody is so sweet, so nice. They're very kind. You don't get them jerks on the road like we do here. People want to give you attitude. I see it every day here, and I understand I'm not up there every day, so you're going to have someone probably reach out, but you know, I dealt with I dealt with a situation or two over the weekend where they were so nice. So, one of them, I went into York, Nebraska, and if y'all been to the Huddle House there in York, 2 young ladies were serving, and because it was game day and the game was in the evening, it was packed with Nebraska fans coming up from Geneva and probably Kansas and everywhere. And that place was packed, and they were shorthanded with these 2 young girls that had to serve all these people in there, and they did it professionally, didn't get frustrated, didn't get upset. And another thing I noticed, nobody in that restaurant got frustrated with them because you had to wait extra long. Maybe something wasn't right. Everybody was helpful, courteous. There, matter of fact, there was a nice young lady and her son that got up and helped one of them bust tables. And I wished I knew who they were. I'd give them a shout out, but I do want to shout out to Jennifer, who was my server. Don't know who the other one is. I'm sorry, but Jennifer did an outstanding job, a great job, and I made sure when I tipped her well because I thought she deserved it, and I'm sure everybody else did. But I was sitting back, laying back, watching how everybody reacted, and I'm like, I don't see this down where I'm at. People would start complaining and bitching because they weren't getting their water or something. So you could just see the difference in how people are, and I think that's what people take from Nebraska. That's why when these recruits come up there, they know there's a difference. That's what everybody's trying to say. There's a difference when you go up to Nebraska and you go anywhere else, and mainly when you're part of the football team. Well, then now you're almost like family. And you know them all and you talk to them all. I mean, it's not like someone walks by. You got a recruit walk by here down there in the Texas area and out there, and no one's even going to know who they are. But I guarantee you, Michael Terry walks over here, I'll know who he is. So, and that's what gets to me is, and that one was, if you look, Cortez came to the game and he just talked about how great this atmosphere was, just how the difference that this crowd made in this game. He talked about how loud it was and how fired up everyone was and how early that people got to the game. And he wasn't the only one. Now, he's one that I could easily see fit in this office. He's kind of like your Ja'Cory Barney type player. And I got a feeling this is one I want to keep an eye on. I feel like this is one the Huskers could get, and I feel like it's going to go probably down the end. If they could get him on one more time, that would probably do it. I know he just loved that atmosphere, and I feel like if anything's going to happen, it's probably going to happen soon. Think as time goes on, you kind of forget about that atmosphere and that way it was. Now, the next one I want to talk about, who again talked about just how crazy and wild, and he is another commitment to someone else. He's committed to Alabama, but this is one, Dawson Merritt, the linebacker, the edge guy that had Nebraska and Alabama down to them too. But this is a big one because if Nebraska keeps winning, he's from Overland Park, Kansas, and I think deep down he really wants to be closer to home, but I think winning has a lot to do with this. And Nebraska has shined the first two games, but again, it's UTEP. Is Colorado really that good? I think it's once you get into Big Ten play, how well are they going to do there? And keep an eye on Dawson Merritt because this is one that I'm putting in. And Nebraska keeps winning. They say at least they go 10-2, mainly if they get down to 10-2, where they're being talked about as a playoff contender. I just think because of the way Nebraska's defense is, he's going to come to Nebraska because guess what? You come in here, and he talked about again how wild the crowd was, how friendly everyone was, that he's never seen an atmosphere like that, how everybody knows who he is. And then you come in here and make a name for yourself, you're almost royalty where you're just in a long line, a list of long players there down there in Alabama. So we're here, you're going to be recognized more. And if Tony White does what he's been doing and continues to do what he's doing, this defense keeps dominating, especially at that position. Expect this right here to easily go the Huskers' way. Now, another one, and he's down here in my neck of the woods, and he still hasn't decided yet. And I feel like right now they have it down to Texas and Nebraska, but everybody's keeping forgetting about Oregon. He is fond of Oregon. He likes Oregon's offense, but Oregon's struggled. Now, yes, they've won, but they've struggled the first couple games. And I feel if Nebraska could get Michael Terry on one more time, get him up here one more time, maybe for the Wisconsin game or something like that, I think they could lock him in. But this is one where Michael Terry wanted to make his decision, but Michael Terry was one of them. Now, let me say this when we've talked to Michael Terry. He said, I am a man of my word. So when I make a decision, that's going to be it. He's not going to back down. He's not going to change his mind. That's why he has not made his decision yet, because he doesn't know yet, and he don't want to flip flop. And you got to respect that. Respect it, mainly for someone so young. And so he was probably going to make a decision probably before now or around this time, but I got a feeling this is probably going to go all the way, maybe even all the way into signing day in December. And so I feel like if Nebraska can just get him on one more time, like maybe, like I said, maybe like the Wisconsin game, that would be a good one, or maybe even the UCLA game. They could probably lock him up. But what's hurting Nebraska is Texas is looking really good. Texas is right there in his neighborhood. Family could go see him. So it's going to be hard there because Texas is looking like they're definitely one of the top national champion contenders right now with what they did at Michigan. And that Michigan game wasn't even as close as that score looked. So, but Nebraska is really working hard on him. And I know Michael Terry was just, he got to celebrate with the guys in the locker room after the game was over. And he just loved what he saw in this atmosphere. So this was such a big success. And the last one I wanted to talk about was one that actually did benefit us, and we did get the flip, and that was Christian Jones out of West Side, Omaha, Nebraska. And this Christian Jones out of West Side this weekend was so impactful, so overwhelming. So, he's been to a few of these games. He since he lives in Omaha, he's been to quite a few games. He said he's never heard it this loud, this wild, this where the fans were really this in it. And that's saying something when you're from here and you went to some of these games. To the point that he committed to the Huskers. And this is another linebacker that I feel like is going to do well. And Christian is classified as, I believe, a 4-star overall. Yes, a 4-star overall. On three has him down as a 3. The others have him down as a 4. And as high as Rivals has him as high as 77th overall. But in the overall and on threes industrial combined rankings, they got him as a 4-star, 91.13. So he's one of the top recruits the Huskers have got a commitment, which puts Nebraska right there at the top 25. If they could grab a couple more of these, they could grab 1 or 2 more of these. Look out. It's going, and what Rule has done so far, and just think they're just starting to win. And what are they going to do when they do win? If they go in there now and play Illinois, I think the key is how well they do, because you're not expecting them to blow out everyone. Would be nice, but it's just not that way anymore. So you're going to expect some of these close games. The Illinois game is going to be probably closer than you think. I just worry about Illinois' offense, but defensively they're good. So is that going to be another one of those 20-10 games, 21-10 or something? But offensively, I think Nebraska is going to be able to hold down their offense. And so defensively, I think they're going to probably be able to do well. And then Indiana is another one that offensively is there. They're another sleeper, another one that's probably approved to everyone they're better than you think. So that's another one you want to sleep on. And that is in Bloomington, Indiana. And that's a week before Ohio State. So to me, that's a trap game. So they better be ready for that one. We'll see how it goes as time goes on. We'll see how this weekend goes. I'm not going to this weekend's game, guys. So I do have a ticket if someone wants to reach out and let me know. I'd probably give it to you. And if not, I'll probably do a video, a reaction video. Since I'm watching it here at home, I'll be able to jump on and do a video, maybe do a live video or something like that. But again, my prediction for Nebraska was 56-6. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and click on notifications, and always smash that like button. It does the channel very well, helps get the logarithm out, helps the channel to grow. And I'd really appreciate it if you guys can do that. So until this weekend after the game, go Big Red.